my dad was a bit of a geek, and often as I came down the stairs I'd hear some famous words coming out of the television, and they were these: space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, and to... Excellent. Some Trekkies boldly go where no man has gone before. We're in the world of Star Trek, aren't we? The original 60s series was the best. And Captain Kirk and his crew, they travel around the universe. And one thing you see with Star Trek, it's great, it's futuristic, but they've got all the tools they need to explore the Star Trek universe, don't they? So they've got this massive spaceship, the USS Enterprise. They've got those smart uniforms on with the intercoms so they can speak to Scotty. Scotty's beaming them up and down. They ain't even got to travel. They transport, don't they? They got phasers so they can protect themselves. They can put the phasers to stun, and and they've got dilithium crystals apparently, so they can travel at warp speed. They can get to where they're going quick. They've got all the tools they need to explore the Star Trek universe. Well, in the book of Ecclesiastes, we meet a man called the Preacher. And he's made it his life's mission to explore the world in which he lives. He's going to go out and he's going to try and make sense of our world, of our universe. He wants to find some sort of fulfillment from the world. And this guy's well equipped. Like the cast of Star Trek, he's got unlimited resources, it seems. He's got wealth, he's got power, he's got authority, and he's got the brains, he's got the smarts. He can look at what he sees, he's got the intelligence to analyse it and come to some sort of conclusion. If we were going to turn Ecclesiastes into a 60s TV show, I think the tagline, the opening spiel, would be chapter 1, verses 12. So look back at chapter 1 a second. He says this: I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my heart to seek and to search out wisdom, all that is done under heaven. So we might think this is going to be a great book. This is going to be exciting. We're going on an adventure with the preacher. He's going to tell us new things. It's going to be brilliant. But actually, even in chapter 1, the preacher bursts his own bubble. So look at verse 2 of chapter 1. Famous line: vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. In chapter 1, you can read it later, the preacher tells us that everything in life goes round in circles. Life is like a big, pointless merry-go-round. And he says, worst of all, it's vain, vanity. Now, when we think of vanity these days, we think of maybe a teenage girl in front of the mirror doing her hair, and she's there for ages, at least in my house. And or you've got teenagers now, they're doing selfies, aren't they? They're doing sort of duck face, they're putting themselves on Instagram. We think those people are vain. But actually, in Hebrew, this word has a slightly different meaning. The word translates as something like fleetingly brief. The Hebrew word is chabel. I'm not saying that right? It's sort of to it. Chabel, right? H-A-B-E-L. And the NIV translates it as meaningless, but that doesn't even really do it justice. It's the idea of something being like a vapor, fleetingly brief. It's there, but then it's gone. So don't imagine. Hopefully you've all had a shower in your life. As soon as I got home from camp yesterday, I was in the bath. And you're in the bath, aren't you? And steam starts to rise up from where you are. If you've got a cold bathroom, then the room is full of steam. And at the end, you think, I've got to let some of this steam go. So you open the window and it just goes, doesn't it? It's there 1 second, it's gone the next. Same when you boil the kettle, the steam comes out, it's there for a few moments, and it just disappears. That's the idea of the word vanity in the Bible. And look at the second part of chapter 1 and verse 13. The preacher says, it is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He says, looking into life, exploring what value I can find in life is an unhappy task. It's made me miserable. And so we're going to join him on episode 2 of his voyage. Chapter 2. We can sum up chapter 2 like this. The preacher seeks fulfillment in pleasure, wisdom, and works, but he finds none. So we've got 5 points. We'll draw our lessons as we go. Point number 1, seeking fulfillment in pleasure. Chapter 1, the preacher looks outward at the earth and he sees the futility of general life under the sun. He concludes that everything's vanity. It's fleetingly brief. You can't grab it. It's meaningless. But now he wants to test his hypothesis. Can't say that right either. Hypothesis, right? He wants to test it. So verse 1, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. He's assessed the world around him and he's decided, well, that's pointless. But maybe on a personal level, he can find some sort of fulfillment, some sort of joy in the things the world has to offer. So this is his big plan. He's going to make himself a human guinea pig. He's going to make himself the test subject. And, he's a lucky boy, he gets to test himself with pleasure. But, again with the preacher, he instantly gives us his conclusion, doesn't he? So look at verse 1. But behold, this was also vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad. So what's the point? And of pleasure, what use is it? Then the preacher tells us how he reached this conclusion. What experiment had he done to realize that pleasure was of no lasting value? We'll look at verse 3. He says, I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. So the preacher says to himself, here's how I'm going to test it. I'm going to go on a pleasure binge. I'm going to indulge in all the good things that this world has to offer. All the good things I can imagine. So in verses 4 to 6, he builds himself mansions. And he plants vineyards and fruit trees. He gets the best landscape gardeners in to make his garden look pucker. There he builds parks and forests. He puts in water features. He imports tree saplings from all over his empire. He's got the most exotic flora he can get his hands on. No one has ever seen anything like this. It's like the Chelsea Flower Show on speed. It's breathtaking in its scale and its scope. And then verse 7 and 8, the preacher exploits the riches of his empire. He brings in the best slaves money can buy to advise him and serve him and give him a life of ease. He doesn't have to lift a finger. He has more herds and flocks and possessions and singers and gold than anyone else. In fact, he considers himself to be the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He says, no king in Jerusalem ever had more than me. He surpassed them all. And as far as sexual pleasure is concerned, the preacher can go where other men can't. Verse 8, he starts a concubine collection. So he goes through his kingdom and he finds all the best looking young women and he marries them. He makes them his concubines. And he's so wealthy, he can have a new girl every single night. Verse 10, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. And this was my reward for all my toil. The preacher's living the dream, isn't he? In fact, most shockingly, for ancient Israelites, for the people who first heard this, he's living the covenant dream to some extent. He's experiencing the covenant blessings that God had promised in the law of Moses. So listen to what Moses tells the people in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 2. He says, all these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. So if you stick to the covenant, if you obey the Ten Commandments, you will be blessed. He says you'll be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. The fruit of your womb will be blessed, and the crops of your land, and the young of your livestock, the calves of your herds, and the lambs of your flocks. Your basket and your kneading trough will be blessed. And you will be blessed when you come in, and blessed when you go out. The preacher's definitely been blessed, isn't he? He's a king with all the riches in the world. And therefore, we expect he should be on the top of the world, right? He should be happy. He's experiencing all of the things that people, both ancient and modern, think will bring them fulfillment. But look at verse 11. He says, then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. This is a devastating conclusion, isn't it? It's devastating to our culture in particular, isn't it? Now, before I say what I'm about to say, personally, I really like capitalism, right? I think to live in a free market economy is a blessing. It's the best form of government we've come up with. It's not perfect, but try something else and you'll realise it's a lot better than most. So I'll say that. It brings a lot of good things: stability, democracy, technological advancement. But capitalism cannot deliver the one thing it promises, can it? It promises fulfillment. What do corporations promise their customers? Well, they claim that their latest product is going to change your life. So buy our new car, wear our new aftershave, get our latest phone, save up for that exotic holiday, build the extension on your house and get Botox for your wife, and that will make you happy. If you do all this, if you get our stuff, you'll be content. And we as Christians fall into that trap, don't we? We tell ourselves that if we had a bit more money, if we had a nicer car or a slightly bigger house, well, that would be it for us. We'd be content. We'd be happy. That would change our outlook on life. That will bring us some sort of peace. But Christian friend, it won't. And that's a real puzzle, isn't it? Most people presume that the bad stuff that happens in their life, so the tragedies, the challenges they face, they presume that that is what's going to make them depressed. And often that stuff does. But a bigger puzzle is, why doesn't the good stuff make it all better? Why is it that getting everything I wanted, everything I thought I needed, how comes that has made me depressed as well? Ian Goldin and Chris Katana are professors in globalization and development. Listen to a paper that they published in 2016, so 10 years ago. They say this: now is the best time in history to be alive. Angry voices will loudly deny this, but that doesn't make it any less true. Life expectancy has risen by more in the past 50 years than in the previous 1,000 years. Incomes are increasing around the globe. For the first time in history, poverty is declining amid rapid population growth. When the Berlin Wall fell, 2/5 of humanity lived in extreme poverty. Now it's 1/8. More people can afford an education. The number of people alive now with an advanced degree exceeds the total number of degrees ever awarded prior to 1980. With a few tragic exceptions, a child born almost anywhere today can expect to grow up healthier, wealthier, and smarter than at any other point in history. Science and technology, jolted by humanity's sharp jump in cognitive resources, has never been closer to flipping our basic condition from scarcity to abundance. Humanity as a whole has never climbed so high, so fast. If you could choose to be reborn at any moment in history, you should choose right now. As far as human beings are concerned, we've never had it so good. We've never progressed so far, so fast. We've never had so much stuff. Despite what you might hear on the news, we live in a golden age of wealth and success. So we should all be really happy, right? But we know that's simply not the case. Think about our own country. Poor mental health among children and young people in the UK has been described as an epidemic and an escalating crisis, with teenagers and young people in increasing numbers self-harming and committing suicide, increasing levels of body dysmorphia, where young people aren't happy with their bodies, with the way they look. In the developed world, suicide is the biggest killer of men aged between 40 and 65. Don't believe the lie that getting what you want will make you happy. The statistics show that that just isn't the case. We are the most blessed generation in world history, but we're also the most miserable. Jim Carrey, the best paid Hollywood actor of the 1990s, said this: "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see it's not the answer." This is the tragedy of living life under the sun. All of our attempts at pleasure and fulfillment end in failure. Second point then, the preacher seeks fulfillment in wisdom. Perhaps the answer's not in pleasure, perhaps it's in education, he says to himself. So look at verse 12. "I turn to consider wisdom and madness and folly." YouTube has realised that I'd rather do a quick survey than watch an advert. So now I'll get a little box come up that says, "What do you use? What advert have you seen? What sportswear equipment do you use?" Right? And I'll click it and on I go with life. Well, I think the preacher, the king, he carries out a sort of survey of all of his wise men, all of his educated men. And he wants to know, where is your education and your wisdom and your knowledge? Where has it gotten you? And it's good news to start off with. So look at verse 13. "Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness." So there are benefits to being wise, he says. You can make sense of the world you're in. You can understand things. You want to know how things work. You're not walking around in ignorance like a fool. It's definitely better to be smart than to be dumb. But what's his discovery, verses 15 to 17? Well, no matter how wise or educated a person may be, they still cannot escape death. And even worse, perhaps, no one, he says, is going to remember them. So look at verse 16. For of the wise as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. Done a lot of funerals since I've been at College Park. Sometimes I'll get to the crematorium early and I'll have a chance to wander around outside, and thousands of headstones, aren't there? And there'll be names and dates, occasional comment, beloved husband and father, etc. I've never seen a headstone with someone's GCSE and A-level results on it, though. I've never seen a headstone that said Joe Bloggs got a 2-1 in engineering at Warwick. Why? Because no one cares when you're dead. In every cemetery, the fool and the wise lay side by sides. Look at the end of 16. How the wise dies, just like the fool. I think there's a warning here for Christian students and Christian parents, and that is, don't make an idol out of your education. It's good to get an education so that you can get a good job and provide for yourself and your family. It's better to be smart than to be dumb. But for some Christians, getting an education seems to have completely taken over their lives. So you see them less and less committed to Jesus and more committed to their personal field of study. And sometimes, sadly, Christian parents encourage their kids to do this. So forget the Sunday evening service or the youth club. You've got to do that essay. The essay that you couldn't be bothered to do during your own time in the week, you better do it now. Because that's more important than your service to God. The message I fear from so many parents is prioritise your education and Jesus can wait. Parents, if you're doing that, you're telling your kids the pursuit of worldly wisdom is more important than their spiritual health. And that is a dangerous message to give to any young person, isn't it? And the reason it's so dangerous is because hell doesn't care if you've got a degree. The top half of your CV ain't going to get you into heaven. Only Jesus is going to get you into heaven. So by all means, Christian students, especially my own kids, work hard. This isn't an opportunity for you to bunk off, right? No, get an education. It's better to be smart than dumb. But never put your studies before Christ, before your Saviour. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added unto you. Okay, third point, preacher seeks fulfillment in hard work. The preacher's reflecting on everything he's looked at so far. There's no fulfillment in pleasure, no fulfillment in wisdom. But what about all the hard work he's been doing as king? Was there any profit in it? Was there any lasting happiness in his work? Can he sit back and say, it was worth it? And the answer is no. Look at verse 18. I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. His frustration's easy to understand, isn't it? He's built this great empire. He's accumulated all of his wealth and status. But as soon as he dies, someone else is going to inherit it. Look at verse 19. Who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This is also vanity. And there's even more frustration for the preacher as he realises he won't be able to enjoy all the things that he's worked so hard for thus far. Verse 20, so I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labours under the sun. Because sometimes a person who's toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. But perhaps you're a workaholic here this morning and you've been ploughing your energy and your skill into your career, into your work. And hopefully you're good at your job. And maybe as a result, you've been very successful. You've been promoted. You've had pay rise after pay rise. The preacher wants you to know this morning, that all that income you're bringing in and saving for retirement or a rainy day, well, one day, all of that's going to be distributed amongst your relatives, or worse, the government. And you might say, well, that's fine. I love my relatives. I love my kids. Well, yeah, but who's to say your kids or your grandkids, probably more likely these days, aren't going to squander every penny you leave them? To be frank, your grandkids could be complete idiots, couldn't they? With no money handling skills whatsoever. They could act like fools, as the preacher says. They could waste all your money on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And yet you're the one who throughout your life got up at 6 a.m, had all the stress and the worry of work. You're the one who's sat in traffic or rushing around trying to catch trains. You were on the Northern Line with someone else's armpit in your face in 35-degree heat. You've done everything, all the hard work, and your relatives have done nothing. They've just sat there playing PlayStation, and they're going to get all the benefits. And the preacher realizes, he says, this is a great evil. There is no lasting fulfillment in the toil of this world. Verse 22, what is a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? All his days are full of sorrow, and his work is vexation. Once upon a time, I was at primary school in the lovely borough of Lewisham, and I wanted to be a good teacher. I wanted to be the type of teacher that changed the lives of the children I taught. What did I find, though? Well, verse 23 summed up my experience. It was a life of sorrow and vexation. I'd be worked off my feet. I'd be in my classroom sometimes at 7 a.m. I wouldn't leave till 7 p.m. Planning lessons, marking books, doing stuff on Saturdays, doing things during my holidays, assessing children's levels, filling out forms. I'd be exhausted. I didn't find my employment a joy. I found it crushing. And the worst thing about that time is when it was time to go to sleep, just like the preacher, he says, even in the night, his heart took no rest. So I tried to sleep, but my brain would still be going 1,000 miles an hour. You've probably had this. You won't settle, will you? I used to replay conversations in my head. If only I'd said that. Huh? I'd lie awake in the early hours of the morning worrying about the next day. What fresh horrors would be waiting for me? But now, all these years later, I can't even remember the names of the kids who are in my class. I could walk past former colleagues, I'd have no idea who they were, wouldn't recognise them. I've got USB sticks crammed full of lessons that I spent hours working on, hours devoted to, but I'll never use them again. Finding lasting fulfillment in your employment is like chasing after the wind, says the preacher. It's like trying to hug steam. What's a lesson for us here this morning then? Well, look, if you're blessed enough to have a job, that's a great blessing from God. Be thankful, work hard at it. Be a good witness where you are for Jesus. But don't be fools. Don't think that climbing the corporate ladder, getting a bigger income, a nicer office, a healthier pension pot, is going to be the answer to your problems. One day your office cubicle will be occupied by someone else. Your hard-earned cash will be distributed to people who did nothing for it and probably don't deserve it. You cannot find lasting pleasure in work. Okay, we've had 3 points so far. It's been pretty grim. Ecclesiastes is a book which deals with life under the sun. That's the phrase that is repeated again and again in this little passage. In the whole book, it's 32 times, I think, it says life under the sun. Life under the sun is life here in this fallen world, in this dead, this dying realm. But actually what the author's really describing is life outside of the garden, isn't he? Remember, when God created human beings, he gave them the Garden of Eden. And he made men and women perfect. Men and women walked with God. They communed with God. And Adam and Eve in the garden, they could expect to live forever. They had access to the tree of life. In Eden, they would have known peace and true fulfillment. And their efforts, their work would have lasted forever. It wouldn't have just flitted away. But of course we know the story. Adam and Eve sinned. They disobeyed God's commands and they were exiles. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and as a result, they were cut off from the tree of life. And ever since, our realm, our reality has been marked by suffering and pain and death. In fact, if you remember, the Hebrew word for vanity is Habel, isn't it? And it sounds like the word Abel, the name Abel. Abel, the second son of Adam and Eve, who could have expected to live for at least 1,000 years in those days, but he's murdered by his older brother, struck down in his prime. His life was fleetingly brief. And we all feel that, don't we? We all feel that life is too short. I was talking to a friend of mine recently. He's approaching the big 40 years old. I've been there a while. But we were discussing, and I've discussed this with other people, as you get older, you don't really in your spirit feel any older, do you? I don't feel any different to how I was when I was 16. I want to do all the things I used to want to do. I want to run and jump and climb things and jump off things and play football and swim. But my body doesn't want to play ball, does it? My body's dying on me. I'm breaking down. I've started to go grey. I'm going deaf. My eyes are problematic. Every time I look in the mirror, I've got a new wrinkle or a new dark spot. The older we get, the more our bodies fall apart. This is life under the sun. This is the reality of living in a world crippled by sin. The sums simply don't add up. Pleasure don't work. Wisdom don't work. Work don't work. Nothing lasts long enough. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. Fourth point then, a crumb of comfort. The preacher's been backed into a godless corner. He's a bit miserable. At the end, he starts to fight back. We get a tiny oasis in the desert. He says, there's nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. Look, says the preacher, this life is hard. The world is frustrating. So the very best a human being can do is to enjoy the good aspects of it. So, while you're living in this world, try and enjoy it. Savour the taste of a good steak. Enjoy a nice warm cup of tea. If you can, find enjoyment in your achievements and your achievements at work. It's not wrong to do that. I do have some very good memories of being a teacher. I'm sure, however hard your job is, you can find pleasure in it. You find fulfillment in it. After all, that's the job you went into, right? You chose it. But, the preacher says, you'll only experience true joy when you acknowledge its true source. So verse 24, it says, this also I saw was from the hand of God. For who can eat or who can have enjoyment more than I? So the good stuff we do get while at work, while enjoying pleasure, it's all from the Lord. In fact, he's created each one of us to enjoy his creation. Paul says to Timothy, he gives us all things richly to enjoy. A lot of Christians should learn that. I've met some Christians, they walk around as if like they shouldn't be enjoying anything. Like, oh no, can't have a chocolate biscuit. No. God's given us this world. There's aspects of it that are very enjoyable. He's not only created me, he's created the things he knows I'll enjoy. Pie and mash, Mars bars. He's given me a lovely family, a beautiful wife. Millwall beating Charlton 4-0. Amazing. Everything I enjoy is from God's hands. See, the Christian isn't immune to the frustrations and pain and hardship of living in this world, are we? Christians get divorced, they get made redundant, they suffer from mental health problems, they've got misbehaving children, they die of cancer, just like everyone else. The fallen world takes its toll on us. But the Christian can truly look beyond this life, and we can gaze upward at the life giver, the provider of true joy and fulfillment, and that is God, isn't it? Our God, Yahweh, our Saviour. And that's where we finish up in verse 26. The preacher says there's two ways to live. We can please God and find wisdom and knowledge and joy, knowing that life itself is a gift. This short life has been given by him. Or we can go the way of the sinner. And that is the way that leaves God out of it. The person who refuses to trust and acknowledge their maker leaves with nothing. Whatever they've achieved, whatever they've acquired will be snatched away when they die. Fifth and final point, though, we can't leave on a negative. We've identified the root cause of the preacher's frustration, haven't we? His frustration is death. His pleasure can't last. The buildings he's made will crumble to dust one day. Weeds are going to take over his garden. His concubines are going to get old and wrinkly. His wisdom survives only as long as he does. All of his handiwork, everything he's built and achieved, is going to be passed on to the next man, and the next man's an idiot. The preacher cannot escape death. But there's one verse in this passage, and I've given it away because it's on the screen. It gives me hope. It gives me joy. Verse 12, what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. This is the big problem for the preacher. He's a king just like any other. He can only do what's already been done, and whoever comes after him can only do what's already been done. But, you know what? We can rejoice this morning because a king did come who achieved something that no one else did ever before and has ever done since. The king that came, he boldly went where no one had gone before. King Jesus. King Jesus, he lived a life of perfection. He was crucified on the cross, pronounced dead and buried. He looks like he's gone the way of all the other kings, doesn't he? But on the third day, he's back to life. He rises. Here's a king who can conquer death. Here's a king who breaks that cycle. That's why Jesus, amidst this world that's full of disappointment and sadness and decay, he's the only person in history who can offer any genuine comfort to people. He is the king of comfort. He's the king of our hope. Jesus promises us that because he overcame the darkness of the grave, that we will do the same. That is not our final destination. Remember the great hymn, Death, where is your sting? Grave, where is your victory? Friends, is your hope in Jesus? If it is, then the frustrations we feel in this life, and we feel those frustrations, same as the preacher, the frustrations we feel in this life, the frustrations we'll feel in the future, are only going to be temporary, aren't they? The King of Comfort promises to raise his people from the dead, to give us life once more. And when we're raised with new bodies, whenever that will be, we'll have a new heaven, a new earth, a new and better place to live, a place that won't see the decay and destruction of this life. And it'll all be worth it. Why? Because it'll all last forever. There will be fulfillment in our work because we'll be working for him, and we'll be able to see what we've done in 10 years, 50 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. It'll still be there. Jesus will bring fallen people like us into a better creation. Well, look, this morning, do you know that King? At the moment, your life's a pointless merry-go-round almost, and you're going to die, and in 100 years, you're going to be forgotten, unless you commit your life to Jesus, and you'll be resurrected. Don't delay. Let today be the day that you move from darkness into light, from despair into joy, and from vanity into glory.